and it's a winning, never to lose. When we talk about vacation, though, it's always a cruise. It's Tony and Tommy with a TNT schmooze. Cruise Talk Weekly, and we lighten the fuse.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Cruise Talk Weekly. I'm Tommy.
And I am Tony, and we're here to talk about everything that's been going on in cruising for the last week. And there's been some stuff going on in cruising. Tommy, how you doing, man? Are you surviving the cold snap?
It's crazy. Yeah, listen, we're both bundled up again. And really, it's just, in my opinion, it's just to make everybody not feel self-conscious. Really, it's ridiculously warm out down here, at least. I don't know what it is up by you. We talked about the tundra last week, but yeah, man, it's pushing 80 here. It's crazy. But yeah, I got the AC going. So yeah, I'm just bundled up a little.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, no, it's started to get cold here. I mean, we were warm yesterday, but I think whatever that winter storm Fern that affected the middle of the country, and I'm a little further north in Florida than you are. So yeah, we're expecting temperatures in the 30s tomorrow. So it's already starting to get a little chilly. And talking about things getting chilly, we had a city come out this week that say they want to completely ban cruise ships.
Yeah, a city, this is a city that's usually playing the straight and narrow, right? Really conservative city. They allow, just a reckless abandon when it comes to drug use. But a couple of cruise ships, we got a problem here, don't we?
Yeah, it's interesting. We're talking about Amsterdam over in the Netherlands. Yeah, it's a very popular city. I get it. They have tourists coming from all over Europe because of some of the reputation that it has, but it's also a hub for river cruising. And I guess the congestion was getting to be too much. And the leadership there said, you know what, let's endeavor to figure out what it would cost to move the cruise port, the main ocean cruise port, out of where it's at now and move it to somewhere else. And so they crunched the numbers and they realized it was going to cost them 85 million euro to move the cruise terminal. And then they crunched some other numbers and they said that they, based on what they saw, that they were only going to make about 45 million euro over a 30-year period, which seems crazy. I don't know where they came up with the numbers, but because they had those two numbers, the math doesn't reconcile, and so the lawmakers go, well, what if we just do away with cruising altogether? And so they're trying to get it to where they're going to get rid of ocean cruise vessels in Amsterdam by 2035. Which, the interesting thing is Amsterdam and Rotterdam, and I'm not super astute with European geography, so I had to look it up. They're only about an hour away, and they're both pretty big hubs for cruise ships and river cruising. And so in reality, and some folks have pointed this out, I don't even think it's an hour away, like 45, 50 minutes. Folks are saying, look, we're not messing with the cruise terminals and the cruise stuff in Rotterdam. So really no big loss if it goes away in Amsterdam. But I don't know, you probably like me, if you want to go to Amsterdam, you don't want to take a 45-minute bus ride from Rotterdam to get there. You just want to dang get off in Amsterdam. I've been to both of those cities, and it was nice to dang get off in Rotterdam and dang get off in Amsterdam. But city's going to do what they're going to do. But it's always a bummer as lovers of cruising to see somebody pushing back against our beloved form of travel.
That's what it is. It would be unfair to say that we don't have some sort of a bias here when it comes to us just being proponents of cruising in general. But, they're looking at the numbers. It's just kind of bizarre to me. Why are we waiting till 2035? It's kind of like, what are we doing? Just a long, slow goodbye? Get ready. We promise, 8-9 more years and we're out of here with cruising. And then the other thing is that they're doing a bunch of stuff there to try to, I guess, a couple of things like save the environment, help the environment and stuff like that. And, they're saying with this still in play, they are mandating that vessels, cruise ships use shore power by 2027. Last I checked, shore power was a fairly expensive new technology. Why are we getting all invested in shore power if we're going to shut it down in a few years anyway?
Yeah, it does seem like some complexity on top of complexity. Maybe they'll, if I'm playing devil's advocate and giving them the benefit of the doubt, maybe they do see, one thing that's always strikes me as harsh is when these locales make snap judgments, snap decisions where there might already be some sort of agreements in place. So without knowing, maybe there are cruise agreements that extend out to 2035 that they're trying to honor, which I think would be a pretty solid thing, because we've seen other places say, hey, we're going to start a new tax next week, and now you can adjust to it, cruise industry. So, but yeah, that is, I didn't hear about the cruise power. That makes no sense at all. Like, hey, we want you to invest in cruise power that's going to not really mean anything 8 years after that. So that's shore power. That's a little bit insane. Well, okay, so they don't want it, and I always say that the cruise industry is booming, and they're making money hand over fist. There's more cruisers than ever every year. So they're going to find a place to go. So it really just becomes a thing for maybe the cruise consumer that say, oh, I'd love to go into Amsterdam. Well, now the cruise company's going to find some other cool thing for you to do, which I can respect that. Interesting that's playing out. I've seen at least 3 or 4 stories lately on new cruise terminals. So you got some cruise cities saying we don't want cruising at all, and then we've got other cruise cities saying let's make a big investment in cruising. Antigua and Barbuda just opened, I think, like a $60 million brand new cruise terminal. I was in Miami and I saw where Royal Caribbean had broken ground on their new cruise terminal. And now we've got this proposal coming out of Los Angeles for this brand new, kind of looks like the Apple headquarters, cruise terminal. And I talked about it on my show, and I already got some pushback from people saying, what's the big deal of having a new cruise terminal? And I think it's a fair question, and I've been thinking about what the best answer to that. I believe that having a new cruise terminal will be more enticing for people to come there and cruise, but maybe I don't have a good answer to it. How would you answer that question? Do you think an investment in a brand new cruise terminal actually means more people cruising? And if so, or if not, why or why not?
I think there's a couple of things. I definitely think that the first thing that comes to mind is the flow. You know what I mean? Whatever antiquated infrastructure exists in some of these, the industry changes just like everything. And, best practices are adjusted over the years, and construction alongside to go with those best practices often streamlines things. And I think the streamlinization, if that, I've just made up a word or added a syllable to that, but that could be a big reason why you get to save money. A lot of times you spend money to save money. So maybe streamlining means less labor, whatever else it could be. But I was looking into this too as well. You said Apple headquarters. When I looked at it, it almost looked like the Rams football stadium. It kind of looked like almost like an arena, like a stadium type of thing. And, we talked last week about LA possibly being a little bit underserved market, or a little kind of like stepchildish when it comes to not getting the best hardware, not getting the best attention. Now, a lot of people were complaining about that. The industry kind of like, doesn't treat us how we should, doesn't give us our just due. Now we have a situation where they are, and I don't know if it's the same people, but people are up in arms a little bit about that. The interesting thing about this particular terminal, if you dive into it a little bit, is that, yes, you see this big structure, this circle structure that is, playing host to all the shops. And I'm assuming there's going to be food and beverage or whatever else. But the most interesting thing to me is that this is going to be open to the general public as well. And Tony, I would pose to you that question. When's the last time you've ever gone to a cruise port without the idea of taking a cruise?
I mean, last week, I went out and saw the Disney Adventure sail away.
Sailaways, yeah.
Not particularly to a cruise terminal, but I've definitely gone to a cruise.
Well, how about normal people then? Not like us. Of course, I'm going to go do the same thing too. But I mean, I'll watch sailaways all the time from cruise terminals. But yeah, it's just I'm sure they're going to do it. They've done, like you say all the time, they have people in offices doing numbers, and these numbers are going to work out. So I think you're talking about an A city. I know it's a little bit on the outskirts of LA. We're talking about Long Beach, but it is an A market, an A cruise city. It should have an A terminal.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think there is some, I've sailed out of what's officially the port of Los Angeles, which, there's San Pedro there, and then there is Long Beach. You can see them. It's all on the same, all in the same water. So I think this might not be, I don't think they're going to replace that Long Beach. I don't think this is a replacement for the dome there that the Spruce Goose used to be in. So I think this is actually going to be where San Pedro is.
Okay.
But, it's an interesting idea, because if we think about popular culture, we would see movies where people would turn out to see a ship sail away, or, the Love Boat. There'd be people on the dock, waving, that kind of thing. So maybe there is I think if you made a whole event out of it where people could go and have a nice meal and watch the cruise ship sail away, it's an interesting play for sure. And I think, first, I got to get this off my mind, or I'm not going to be able to go forward. I just want to say this. I'm a big fan of Ed Sheeran. I like Opie from the Andy Griffith Show, Dave Thomas's daughter, Wendy, anybody that's a ginger or a redhead. I have a lot of love for them, because last week I said that LA was the redheaded stepchild of the cruise industry, and I got a fiery reprimand from somebody who has the red hair. And again, we live in a time where almost anything that you say can offend at least one person. And certainly when I use that term, redheaded stepchild, I guess that is a derogatory term toward the ginger community. So I just want to come out and say I love the redheads, and very sorry. I don't want the Andy, the Opie, fan club coming after us. So I had to lay it out there. But I like this idea of this cruise terminal in LA. I think you hit the nail right on the head, that as technology improves, then the processes improve. And I've always contended that the three most stressful parts of a cruise are embarkation, the muster drill, when it used to be the old form of the muster drill, and then disembarkation. And so anything that you can do to make those things better, because think about that. If your very first cruise, say you're going to cruise out of Los Angeles, and they have an old system there and an old rundown facility or an older facility, and it takes you 2 hours to get on the cruise ship, and it's your first time cruising, you might sit there and go, well, this sucks. Like, why do I want to cruise again? Because that was a big pain in the butt. Or if it takes a long time to get off the cruise ship, that's a big pain in the butt. So I think, for the West Coast has to get their numbers up. Money talks and BS walks, right? Why are there so many more, nice cruise ships in Florida? Because we have a lot more cruisers. And so they're going to deploy their good hardware where there's a lot more cruisers. And so if the West Coast can improve their stature and get more people to cruise, then I think maybe they're going to get a look. So I like this move. Also, in my comments, there are a lot of people saying, well, they don't ever get anything done in Los Angeles. They were going to build a monorail out there or something. So don't hold your breath on the cruise terminal, but I think I will hold my breath on it. I'd like to see a new cruise terminal out there.
Yeah. And you said before, and you could have just made me wonder a little bit, or kind of think about, like, how Love Boat had the days of yesteryear where you kind of escort people who are going on a cruise. In some cases, you got to even board the ship. And, I was thinking, all that stuff kind of maybe drawing people to the cruise port and to the cruise terminal. Maybe they're just going for a drink. Maybe they're just going for dinner. But then they see these big, beautiful cruise ships sailing around, and they're like, you know what? We haven't cruised in a while. Maybe we should give cruising a shot again. Yeah, I saw a commercial. Yeah, so-and-so said they went on a cruise. It's not like it was in 1997. And that could be kind of like a little bit of a strategic, strategic strategy, for lack of a better term. That might be why they're doing it. You know what I mean? Maybe just getting some people who wouldn't have otherwise cruised into the area to see what kind of new hardware is out there now.
Man, can we lay out $1 million idea right now? And if a cruise line takes it, then we said it first, copyright 2025 Cruise Talk Weekly. Wouldn't it be wild if there was an observation place, say at Port Canaveral, like a Jetty Park, but it's a observation platform built by a particular cruise line that had a booking agent in it. So you got like a nice top. You got like a nice observation deck, maybe a bar. You come have some cocktails. You watch, say Royal does it. You watch the Icon of the Seas sail out of Miami. And then as you're walking downstairs from having your cocktail after you see it, there's a place where you could book your next cruise. I think that would, and so I could see looking at that design of that, the rendering of the Los Angeles potential new cruise terminal. Why not put a representative there? Come watch a cruise ship sail away and book your next cruise. Things are
1,000%. Yeah, absolutely. And, it's just, I guess it can hold 2 modern day mega ships, I guess is what the plan is. It's going to be able to hold 2. Okay. Yeah. No, again, people of LA, West Coast cruisers, everybody who is complaining about, you being underrepresented, this is something to get behind. Let's see it go through and make sure it doesn't go the way of the monorail.
Yeah. Yeah. Vote yes. Vote yes for new cruise terminal. Now, there is something that I'm happy to vote no about, and I'm going to pick on Disney Cruise Line for a minute, but this is really a problem with all cruise lines. Disney raised their Wi-Fi prices, I don't know, like 15%. To like something like $50 a day for basic internet. Now, my complaint is this: where I work here in the studio, it's considered a commercial property, so I have to get commercial internet. With that said, the internet here in my studio, which is very fast and very reliable, it's only $150 a month. But now you're talking about if you want to get on a cruise ship and use their internet for just one day. And like I said, I could have a studio party here and we could all use the internet, 50 of us if we wanted, and it would still cost the $150, $5 a day. Now Disney, their pricing's like $50 a day. So $350 for a week's worth of internet, and the internet's not really that good. Now, again, not necessarily picking on Disney because that's true. The internet's expensive on every cruise line and it's not that good. I don't know. Like, I feel like this is becoming a profit center for cruise lines. The argument could be made that, the to support the bandwidth, the technology, the investment in technology, all that kind of stuff. But at some point, you're at a tipping point where you're not spending any more on the internet. You've implemented the internet, you've got the hardware in place, and you're getting return on investment, and then everything else just becomes profit. And it does seem like because addicts, so many of us got to have that internet. It becomes one of those things that people will pay anything. And I feel like the cruise lines are starting to hone in on that. Like this is, even more so than the overpricing of photographs. I think they realize that they can make money off of the internet. Do you buy the internet every time that you cruise? Is this a new phenomenon? Have you always done that?
Well, since it became kind of like standard, yeah, my first couple of cruises, maybe the first couple of years I didn't. And I just checked in maybe I bought an hourly situation. But yeah, as the world changed and the prices came down and the Wi-Fi got better on board, yeah, it's automatic for me. Now,
we need to run a poll or something in our communities because I don't think I've ever asked that question. Every time you talk about the internet, and I'm assuming that even when we talk about the internet here, there's going to be a stalwart group of people that say, you go on a cruise to disconnect and only, I lock my phone in the safe, and I lock everything up and I don't use the internet. I feel like that the number of those people are becoming less and less, but it's a pretty vocal crowd, the anti-internet crowd on the cruise ship. But we probably need to do some polling just to see, but I gotta feel like 70% of the people buy the internet. That could be high, but it'll be interesting to find out. I'll definitely run a poll in my community and try to figure that out a little bit. But I think the days of disconnecting is starting to get behind us because we live in such a connected world.
Agree. And I'll say a couple things. So this is just, again, this has been an ongoing theme and a trend, talking about trends that the cruise lines are just pushing forward. They're pushing forward with the raising of the prices, with the taking away of certain experiences. And it's going to continue to happen because they're like, corporate America does not give back money. That's just what they don't do. They don't give back money. So when they see this working and they see nothing but more bookings, increased bookings, they'd kind of be a little dumb to stop, right? Now, with the other thing with Disney in this internet situation is that the 15% number is on the lowest package. Okay, so that's I mean, it's 17% if you go to the if you upgrade to the other ones. The other thing also about Disney is I don't think you can switch up devices. I think it's a hard line on one device.
Yeah.
And they did this whole thing, and you see in this a little bit more, Tony, or correct me if I'm wrong, little kind of quiet rollouts, not necessarily, hey guys, sorry, this comes a time when we have to kind of, they just did this, and it was like, oh well, one day it's now it's a different price.
Yeah, so thinking about that, that's what I was trying to think of. Like, the analogy is not going to be good, right? Like, sometimes you go to the gas station and gas is just more. Nobody sent out an alert, but that's definitely different. I'm just trying to think of another thing where a price could increase and nobody tells you about it. I think,
I'm sure you could find one, Tony. I'm sure you could find one. But the problem is that we've become accustomed to these announcements happening. Of course, you know what? If the normal was, if there was going to be an increase in gratuity, if there was an increase in internet, the increase in the drink package. Listen, we found out about it through several different news outlets, cruise news outlets, and there was a little bit of a warning time to get used to it. So book your cruise now, and that might have been a strategy too. Book your cruise now, get the drink package now because it's going up. Same thing with Wi-Fi. But this is a new norm, and we're coming up on many new norms where they're just kind of just slow rolling it out.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to. I've been trying to. I've heard that conversation. So that's what I'm trying to figure out. Like, do we find out about these price changes because somebody's bird dogging the websites, or are press releases coming out saying, "Hey, we've increased our prices"? I don't have a good sense of it. I feel like most of the time I'm learning about it because somebody spotted it on a website. But, because we'll get a lot of these stories like, oh, this just rolled out and nobody told us. I'm trying to get a good sense of, did they ever tell us? And maybe they did. Maybe they did. But it doesn't seem like if that was the case, a lot of these things aren't announced. Maybe they are. I don't know.
Could be the case. I just know that was sometimes a strategy. We would say we'd find out it's going up so that, maybe we can book more before it goes up.
Yeah, like big announcements. Yeah, like I said, the drink package is going to change. If you pre-book it now, you can get it at the old price.
Yeah.
I think, again, I think there's enough stories out there that'll say X changed and nobody said anything about it. That does suggest that they used to say something about it. But,
okay.
Yeah, again, I don't know. I think you might be right, but it is annoying, but it is a great question of like, how transparent should these places be? I think they should be really transparent with the prices. And I guess, whatever's going on with this NCL situation in Hawaii, is this thing screaming transparency or what? It's screaming, but what do you think about this thing?
Anything but. And we're talking about the Hawaii tax that they're going to impose. And it's just being battled in court. It's going back and forth. Yeah, the tax is happening. No, it's not happening. Yeah, it's going to happen, but it's going to happen in 3 years, for whatever. So there's just continuous back and forth about whether or not this is going to happen. So NCL walks in and says, hold my beer. We're charging it. You can figure out if you're going to charge it. We're not going to spend the time or waste the time to figure out what you're doing. We're going to charge it going forward. And it's kind of crazy, right? And I said this. I think this is not starting out immediately, but they said it's going to be a set percentage of your cruise if you go to Hawaii that you're going to have to pay. And it's it's also the crazy thing to me about this is that they're not even putting it in. We all know port charges and taxes are usually in the upfront price of the cruise, what you have to pay. Now, I know it's not the cruise fare, but the ultimate price of the cruise. This is now going to be listed as an onboard expense, and it's going to appear on your sign-in sale card once you're on board. You want to talk lack of transparency because there's only a certain percentage of the people that are as dialed in as we are. So you're going to hit a whole bunch of people, blindside them with this charge. And I'm surprised that they want to do this knowing the pushback they'll get once people are on board.
Yeah, I mean, we've started to see it a little bit. I got emails from people that were on Pride of America saying they got hit with this charge, and they didn't feel like there was a lot of clarity as to, well, first of all, they said that the charge stuck. They couldn't get it removed. And then there wasn't a lot of clarity beforehand as to why it was on there. I really would hope that if you already have a cruise booked to Hawaii and now it becomes evident because they sent these letters out that you could get charged, I really hope they let you cancel that cruise without penalty. efficiency. Now, a lot of times cruise lines aren't really good at that, but I tell you what, if I was booked to go to Hawaii and you sent me a letter saying that you were going to charge me for a tax that wasn't even valid yet for maybes, I would be like, I got to cancel that cruise. I'm not paying an extra, and it's not inexpensive. You know,
It's not exactly. It's not $12. So yeah.
Yeah. If it was $5, $12, $20, that's one thing. We're talking for some folks, it's thousands of dollars. Could you imagine that at the end of your cruise? Like, you know, you held to the budget pretty good. You got a balance of $412 or something because you bought some stuff and some drinks, and then the last day of the cruise, you get a $1,500, $2,000 charge out of the blue for a tax that doesn't exist. And they're not going to let you off the ship. This is the thing this is the wild thing about cruising, and I'm sure there's some great stories around it. But I've been on more than one cruise ship. When you're walking out to scan your card to leave through security for the last time to go to that gangway to go back to your to the airport or to your car or whatever, where a couple people have been stopped and pulled out of line and told they need to go to customer service because they have an outstanding balance. The cruise lines, they're hardcore when it comes to having an outstanding bill. And they are not inclined to let you leave the cruise ship if you have a balance on your sail and sign card. So could you imagine that? All of a sudden, day 7 of a 7-day cruise, your sail and sign gets hit with an extra 18 honey, and you're not going to pay it, and you try to walk off, and they're like, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Jones, but Dr. Jones, I'm sorry, Mr. Jones, you're going to have to go to customer service and make some sort of promissory note or pay it off or something. That would be a bad day.
I don't know. The outlaw in me wonders, I guess, you're talking about cruise ship security. And I've seen this happen. I've seen where people were not allowed off the cruise ship. I actually had to lend somebody money to pay. It was on the Florida Georgia Line cruise. The guy was just at the bottom, just looking all sad. Like, I can't get off the ship. Can you lend me $40? I'm like, yeah, sure. No problem. But what would happen? What would happen if you bum rushed the gangway and tried to make your way off? What would they be able to do?
The only problem, so like I catch what you're saying. Like a lot of times the cruise ship security are not the beefiest, most robust. But beyond,
well, I'm just and not even that. I'm not even going there. I'm kind of going there, but also, what authority do they have? Like what jurisdiction are they? I would imagine they would just call the police, the regular police.
Yeah, I mean, you still got to clear customs and border protection and their communication. So I think you have a stronger line of security beyond that gangway that I don't think it would be successful. I don't think, but that would be interesting to see somebody make a break for it. I think there was a story, a few months ago where some guy jumped off a cruise ship. It might have been in Curacao or something, just to make a break for the shore or something like that. I don't know.
I think it was in Miami.
Crossed into, yeah. Oh, okay, yeah. Somebody crossed into the cruise area to try to make a break for it or something.
To avoid it. Oh, that too. No, you're right. So there was a couple of them. The Curacao one was one where he was just basically running from the law. And then you had that one, the guy was jumping off the side of the ship to try to avoid the gambling debt that he had.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's true. Man, look, both you and I love gambling, but there's so many wild stories about people and what gambling does in a negative way that it really makes you check yourself, because that guy jumping off the ship because he ran up a gambling debt was wild. I don't know, man. So, I don't think somebody's going to have to challenge it. If NCL is doing this and it becomes something this pervasive, I got to feel somebody's going to challenge it, because it just doesn't make sense at all. Like, you're telling me that you want me to pay for something that's not even a real tax. I mean, it's on the books, but it's not being enforced. That's some wild stuff, man. I just don't see how they're going to fit away with
it. But is it going on right now? I thought I saw that they were trying to put it in play, and then a couple of people complained, and now they're saying, you know what, we're just taxing you. Now they are being transparent about it. It's going to be in July or something, or They're going to start it at a certain day. I'm not 100% sure on this, but I do believe that they said, because we're giving you this lead time, you're going to now know that there is a tax. You know what they'll do, Tony? They're going to put it in the cruise contract, and then it's going to be there, so they can't deny it. You signed it, but then it's still going to be the thing where they find out while they're on the ship or just before they're getting off the ship, and then boom. Hopefully this is the cruise line thinking, hopefully we spent enough. They spent enough money on board that this is such a low percentage that they won't even notice it's there.
That it is so crazy. I was just trying to pull up to see. So 14% tax for sailings departing January the 1st and April the 30th, 2026. The notice between January the 1st and April the 30th. So for sailings departing between January the 1st and April the 30th, 2026, the notice explains that the tax will not be included in the cruise fare shown at the time of booking. Instead, it'll be added to each guest onboard account. So I don't know if it's going on now or not.
Is that the notice? If it sounds like that's when they're going to be notified, that's the listening window. Maybe I don't know.
Maybe so. That's crazy. We'll have to keep an eye on it and see if that goes down in Funky Town, because that's bad on so many levels. Bad on so many levels.
It really is.
The other thing that's blown up on the internet is there's a video out there, and I saw it on TikTok with some sort of sound. I can't remember what the sound was, but it's a shot that we're all familiar with. If you've been on a cruise ship, if you've had a balcony and you're somewhere midship, you'll go out on your balcony and you look to the left toward the, depending what side of the ship you're on. But if you're on the port side, you look to the left and you see all the way down to the bow of the ship, or to the stern of the ship. And if you look to the right, you look all the way to the front of the ship, you may see the bridge. And so that's what happened on this video. But when you look to the right, you could see a lady's head moving rapidly. And the suggestion was, as they look closer in this video, is that she was partaking in, the act of bringing life into the world. I don't even think so. They were bumping uglies. That's what I'm trying to say. I guess I'm dancing around this too much, but it became obvious that somebody was a member of the balcony club, and whoever was filming was able to see it. And it was interesting as you looked into the comments of that video. It was a mixed bag of, hey, that's what the balcony's for, way to go. And then other people saying, look, man, these people shouldn't be doing that, because if somebody could see them from the balcony, you don't have any control over who could see that. So potentially kids could be hanging over the balcony and seeing people in that activity. So it opens up an interesting debate in cruising. I guess first and foremost is a reminder that even though balconies are private, I would call them semi-private. And there are cameras all over the outside of the cruise ship. So you're not necessarily having a private moment. And then the broader debate is, should people get in trouble for doing this activity? This is a long conversation in cruising. What do you think about the balcony club? Should there be hard and fast rules for it? Again, well, not for it, but against it, for potentially the fact that maybe kids could see something going on?
I'd like to pose the question. Okay, I want to put it out there. We love our comment section. We love everybody, the detractors, the supporters, everything. We don't put polls out. We haven't put a poll out. We're not putting a poll out, but I would like to casually ask, just out of curiosity, who of our listeners are part of the balcony club? I'd like to know, who of you are bold enough to admit that you're a part of the balcony club? No judgment whatsoever. To answer your question, Tony, of course, you can't do that in port. Like that's out of control. That is, that's a sex crime. That's a sex crime.
They were at sea, though.
Oh, they were at sea. I thought you said that they... Sweet. So how did they get caught?
Somebody from another balcony was just panning the camera.
Oh, I thought you meant... When you said that, I thought you meant it was across the way. Okay.
They're on the port side. I'm sorry. The port side of the ship. Yeah. Opposed to the starboard side.
Yeah. No, you should get in trouble. If you get caught, you should get in trouble. Absolutely. If you get caught, you should get in trouble. Banning, that's inappropriate. It's lewd. I'm not trying to be a prude or whatever, because, people do what they do. But, you have to have some sort of decorum, maybe at a certain time of day or evening or night probably is the best time. If you are crafty enough to get it done without getting caught, kudos to you. Not saying I condone it, not saying it's, these types of public displays that are kind of coming up on unsuspecting people. It's not fair to them that they should have to deal with that or see that, or God forbid any of their children have to see that. That's horrible. No excuse whatsoever. But in general, the answer is yes, there should be repercussions. You shouldn't be allowed to do that. Or you can't even, I would go further as to say there shouldn't be noises to the effect of that going on. That should be done in the private in private. That's all.
That's what I was going to say. So, like, certainly on most balconies, the further back from the rail, the more privacy. But there is no privacy. There is no, like, if it's noisy, then everybody can hear that. That's what I was going to ask. I saw another video where somebody had paid up to get their first balcony, and on the balcony next to them, somebody was practicing the flute every day. So they were on their balcony playing the flute. And so I was trying to determine what would be more annoying, if somebody was going at it and you could hear them, or if you had flute every day. I think both would be annoying, but
Wow.
I think if every day I went out on my balcony to enjoy the sea and there was somebody practicing the flute, I think I probably would get in trouble for trying to hurt somebody on a cruise ship.
Yeah, that is a tough call, because you could say maybe day one, all right, little flute, no harm, no foul. If this guy's still, what's the anchor man? What's his name?
Ron Burgundy.
Ron Burgundy, jazz flute, day 6. Yeah, somebody's going over. The flute's going over something. I'm going over. I'm not listening to that for my entire cruise.
The cool thing is, like, if you did call to complain about it, I would try to go highbrow about it. I try to use the word flautist. I think that's what you call a flute player.
Yeah.
Like, hello, customer service. There's a flautist next to me, and I can't stand it. I can't stand the flautist.
Well, maybe they pull out a different woodwind instrument. Maybe it's listen, this is not a flute. How dare you? This is a piccolo. This is a big
I got a Zamfir over here.
Whoa.
Zamfir. Kate Tillman's got the Zanfir.
Yeah, stumps me on that one.
Yeah, cruising's wild. Cruising's wild. I think sometimes people take for granted, there's a lot of ways that could go too. Cause people in the comments are like, well, maybe they like the fact that other people are watching them. And, there's different times and places for that. If it was an adults only cruise, that kind of thing. But, nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. So
no, listen, there's no judgment whatsoever. Whatever type of lifestyle you have, all good. But, unknowing participants shouldn't be dragged into that. Even adults only cruises, I guess it's a little better. Yeah. But, there may be adults who are not, for religious purposes or whatever it is, they don't want to hear that or see that, nor should they have to.
And then, I think there's also a reputation sometimes the late night on hot tubs get used for that activity. And anywhere that's public where whatever your activity is going to, leave a lasting impression for the next person to come along. It's a big no-no. So
yeah.
I guess our PSA today is, keep it in your cabin. Keep it in your cabin.
Keep it in your cabin or deep into the back of the balcony late at night, and be quiet, please.
Be quiet. Okay, so, the show's interesting this week. Cruise Talk Weekly, episode 19. Big shout out to everybody who's listening in audio form. Big shout out to everybody that's looking at our faces. Man, we've been having a really good time doing this, and we're getting more and more people every week. So thanks, everybody, for being a part of this community. You say it on your show that really the comments and the interaction, and you say the emails are the kind of the lifeblood of the show. That's certainly true, because not only do we love to talk to each other and riff off each other, but we love to use your comments, just like the.
That's true. You talking about the Always Be Booked Cruise podcast?
The Always Be Booked Cruise podcast. Premiere, baby. Oh, you know what? I was going to slip in a dad joke. You said we had detractors. Did you say detractors? You know what? I like when the protractors get into it, because they come at us with all kinds of angles.
Yes.
That's a math joke, everybody.
We take a lot of trips on this show. We visit this Catskills very, very often, and we love every minute of it.
Buddy Hackett. Yeah, don't make me get Pythagoras out here. Okay, let's talk about the cruise trends of 2026. It's a cliche with that little accent over the word cliche. We're not French, but 2026. It's January barely, and so we should talk about the cruise trends of 2026. And I pulled this list. So Expedia, the big travel organization, they put this list out, and I think I added one myself. But I want to throw them out there, and let's talk about them and say whether or not we think they will be a cruise trend in 2026, and how we think it will impact cruising. Number one, and I think this is a very valid cruise trend, the move toward private islands. Do you think this is a trend for 2026, and what do you think the impact will be?
Yeah, no, it clearly is definitely a trend. And I think it's not necessarily limited to private islands. I think you're talking about private resorts within islands, little specific areas, clubs, exclusivity, if you will. I think you've seen that kind of wave come across cruise ships themselves, and you're seeing it happen more on the, any of the destinations that we go to, and people seem to love it. Cruising gets beat up a lot for, maybe lacking in culture, and this kind of speaks to that or goes in that direction because, what are you really doing? If you're going into Nassau or you're going into, I guess they say Santorini, they're coming up with a beach club too, and you go to the cruise line's private destination, how much are you really traveling? But again, you should never tell people how to travel, never tell people how to cruise. Some people live crazy, wild lifestyles, and really what they want to do is get away. They want some R&R, let them enjoy it. But I do think it's a trend. I do think it's a valid that it's being called out as a trend. And, I think the result will be the cruise lines are going to make a lot more money.
Yeah, I've heard that argument that, cruising's lazy travel. And then once you do things like lean heavily into private destination, then that, really removes the travel aspect of it. But I think, what people miss out on, and another trend, we'll talk to this, but if you're thinking about a 7-day cruise where you go to 2 traditional cruise ports and maybe one, Coco Key or, Great Stirrup Key, something like that, I think it's a nice mix. And because it is a trend and because we see so much investment in these private destinations, I do believe that this is what people want, because the cruise company, they're not going to go down a path of investing in something deeply if it's not what people want. So I think they've established the data that people are happy, they feel safe, and all these things. The reason that I like it that it's a trend in 2026 is I feel like competition in anything is good. And so, we've seen, and I don't think it's a stretch to say the Royal Caribbean's the leader in this space, that Perfect Day at Coco Key is like, the cat's meow. But what's beautiful is I think other cruise lines like Norwegian, which is right next door, says, hey, we gotta step our game up. Carnival with Celebration Key as a private destination, that's their attempt to step the game up. So I think it's a win-win for cruisers because, again, not everybody wants to, go deep into the countryside and, do something cultural or historic. Sometimes you just want a nice place to go where you feel safe and where you can get a cold drink and swim in a pool. And I think as companies compete on this, I think it really benefits cruisers because it does open up a lot of opportunities where you can look at the other ways cruise companies compete and make a decision where you're not going, well, I really want that great private destination experience, so I guess I'm stuck going on Royal Caribbean when I really like Carnival better or I really like Norwegian better. Now that they're stepping up their game, you can make decisions based on something else. So I like it as a trend, and I'm excited. I hope to go to Great Stirrup Key later this year, and I'm going to go to the Royal Beach Club in about a week. I guess I'm only whatever Friday is. That's my next cruise day. I'm just a few days away from getting on a ship. It's one. I don't know if you get like this on cruise week. Sometimes you forget and you're like, oh crap, I got to do stuff and get ready for a cruise. But I guess maybe by Sunday I'll be at that Royal Beach Club, which will be pretty interesting.
That's awesome. Looking forward to hearing your experience there. That looks really, really cool, especially that kind of like high energy pool with the DJ setup. I love it. I mean, yeah. So like the fact that they're doing this and the fact that they're competing over it, I think is 100% good. I love it. I would just ask the cruise lines, please, if you're listening, please just leave the barbecue, the grab and go buffet style barbecue when you're building these things, because I know Celebration Key got away from that, and I miss out on that experience. I like it, and not just because it's free. Of course, I love that it's free, but I just love the barbecue chicken out there, and you have a couple of different items. You can kind of build your own plate. It's non-committal. You can try a little of this, try a little bit of that, and you just feel like it's part of the private island experience. And I would hate to see it go away on a grand scale.
It's tough. And we talk about this, when does cruising not become a great value? And it does get annoying that, things that used to be included aren't included, and you just feel like somebody's in your pocket all the time for a good time, right? And that's what's frustrating, because it's like, okay, I can accept the fact that I'm gonna have to overpay, I'm gonna have to buy expensive drinks when I'm on a private island, but at least I can have a meal, and I'm only out the drinks. Well, then some person somewhere goes, well, if we charge for the food, then we would make back our operating costs for taking the food over to the island, and we can turn a profit on it. And somebody goes, oh yeah, let's do that. Well, what about the customer experience? Well, I don't know. Most people are still happy and they'll suck it up. So again, with every business, that customer satisfaction will come to a tipping point where they'll say, well, if I'm just going to a beach anyways, why not go to an all-inclusive where I can get all my food and drinks and I'm still having that same beach experience, and, maybe cruising is not that great a value. I hope it doesn't ever get there, but it does seem like, sometimes I don't want to, it could be greed. It could be just chasing the profit. That is capitalism. That's the way the world works. But there is always that tipping point where you're going to push it a little too far. And, as we've seen over the last few years, it is a little more take than give. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out.
So you have 3 stages, right? You have 3 stages of it. I think Half Moon Cay, relax away at Half Moon Cay. Basically, all you can do there is get free food, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Then you have Perfect Day Coco Cay, which I think they do it perfect. They have 2 nice, beautiful barbecues, or open barbecue food options, and then they have some paid options if you want to upgrade. See, the Celebration Key thing throws me off because, yes, of course, it's the value end of it, but you got to decide, okay, if I'm getting the conch fritters, that's it. I'm all in on the conch fritters, or I'm all in on the Greek, but if you don't like it, it doesn't, too bad. You already paid for it. That's what you're eating. And if you want another meal, there's no flexibility with it. I'd like to grab the hot dog and then maybe try a piece of chicken and then maybe make myself a little taco. That's part of the fun. You know what I mean? Don't take it all away from us.
Yeah, it's funny, and I don't think what I say means anything, but you'd almost rather them not give you one free item, right? Like, you just like, okay, I got to spend my money, so I've got to be really selective about what I get. But yeah, it almost feels like a tease to just give you one thing, and if it's crap, you're like, oh man, this is not good. Not good at all.
I lost. Yep. Please try again.
Another trend in 2026 is shorter cruises. So, the interesting thing, somebody published an article, I feel bad that I can't remember the website, that called Carnival the leader in weekend cruises. Now, Carnival doesn't necessarily market their cruises as weekend cruises, but as I got deeper into the article, because immediately, Utopia of the Seas did the wonderful marketing of the world's best weekend or the greatest weekend or something like that. And they specifically went at the idea that they're a weekend cruise. But if you look at the lineup, traditionally Carnival's had 3 and 4 day cruises. They've had shorter cruises. So it's not a new phenomenon there, but it is a new phenomenon that we start to see other things like Oasis class cruise ships doing a 3-day cruise. But apparently that trend is going to continue. And certainly, the argument against the short cruise is, I live in Canada and I got to fly to Florida, and I'm not going to fly to Florida for a 3-day cruise. Or I live in the middle of the country and I'm not going to fly to Galveston for a 3 or 4 day cruise. But again, I think the numbers flesh out enough to where enough people will get on a 3 or 4 day cruise that the trend is trending that way. And, sometimes another thing that people will do is a cruise is just part of their vacation, right? They got a week off. They got 10 days off. Let's go to a place, do a few things on land, and then we'll get on a cruise. The thing is, and we've talked about it before, the shorter cruises tend to be a little more boozy. They tend to be a little more of a ruckus. They tend to be a little more, aggressive. And so it begs the question, if this is a trend in 2026, is this long-term, is this going to help or hurt cruising? I don't know where I sit on it. How do you feel about it?
It's such a crazy time because a lot of things are up in the air, and we're going to see where they, what the market leads us to and where it kind of how it falls into place. But for the cruise lines, I think it's very beneficial because of the fact that I don't think they lower, like basically if you have a 7-day cruise and now they're going to change that to a 3 or a 4-day cruise, they're not cutting that price in half. They're going to get 75% of the money that they would get for the 7-day cruise. So now they can fit 2 of those cruises and make 150% of the money that they normally would have made on a, especially with the newer cruise ship. So it's advantageous for them. It definitely does help the industry in general because 100%, it makes so much sense that people who do not want to, dive all in, they want to dip their toe in the proverbial water of cruising. This gives them an opportunity to do that. Yeah, a little bit more of a premium. And to be able to do that on the nicer hardware, the newer ships. And I believe you mentioned the Oasis classes, but I think they said that there was going to be an Excel class from Carnival that was going to do it as well. I forgot which one. Was it going to be the Mardi Gras?
I think it's Mardi Gras, yeah.
Yeah, I think Mardi Gras is going to do shorter cruises too. So that, when you talk about trends, that is a trend. So, and then the argument against, someone who's from Ohio, they want to sail in or fly in for a 3 or 4 day cruise. The beauty of that is that they don't have to. The beauty of that is they can pick a 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 day cruise. So I do struggle with the with the thought of trying to get on an Oasis class ship and get off in just 3 days, especially something like the Utopia. I struggle with the thought of getting off of that ship in 3 days, but they're selling, they're doing well, and I do think it's an overall net positive for the industry.
Yeah, I think the short cruise for those kind of ships, I think it actually bakes in a repeatability that maybe there was a time where I didn't want to repeat a cruise ship, but the idea of maybe I do 3 days and I see what I can see in 3 days, and then I come back and there's still a new adventure to have. There's a little bit of an appeal to that. Like, okay, we really loved it, and we know, say I live in Florida and I go over to wherever those ships are going out of, Canaveral or down to Miami, I could do that again. So I think they're almost baking a little bit of a repeatability. But certainly, when I was a new cruiser, my very first cruise, we jumped through that mental exercise. Like, hey, there's a bunch of different cruise links. We don't know if we're going to like cruising or not. Do you want to commit to a 7? It's like, no, I don't really want to commit to a 7. Can I try a 4? And that's certainly what we did. I mean, we went all the way to Mobile, Alabama to get on the Carnival Fantasy for a 4-day cruise. So maybe it was a 3-day cruise. I don't know. It was something crazy, but all for the idea of we didn't know whether we would like it or not. So I think it's a good play, as cruising continues to explode and as they get brand new cruisers, I think offering a short option is going to pay off. And I said it when Royal, put their newest hardware on it. I think it's a brilliant play because, again, what better way to hook somebody into cruising by, than giving them the very best, right?
Right.
If you give them the worst with technology, if you give them the worst where there's no USB plug in their cabin, in a world where everything has a USB plug, you're like, what is this? Like, is this what my grandparents do? So I think it's a pretty cool play.
Yeah. Also with the multi-generational family from Ohio that's going to come in and try to dip their toe in the cruising water, but then I'll end up on the, Carnival Conquest on a 3-day out of Miami. They may they may have received the opposite of the effect that the cruise line, desired for them to realize.
Yeah,
it's just a wild craziness. I mean, crazy sail away parties. It's just, it can get nuts. Those short cruises, especially Carnival, they can get crazy.
This next trend, I think maybe ties back to a little bit of what we talked about. Based on the Expedia booking numbers, they're saying that bookings to the Caribbean are up 150% over last year, and bookings to the Mexican Riviera over there on the West Coast up 300%. So, yeah, maybe we are seeing something happen on the West Coast where they should be getting some more love. But it's interesting to me that you see the Caribbean bookings going up. There's not. We talk about places starting to push back against cruising. I think one of the most accepting places of cruising are the islands in the Caribbean. I can't, there's maybe a couple stories, Grand Cayman, they don't want to build a dock, that kind of thing. But for the most part, again, so much of the economies of these Caribbean islands are tourism. It makes a lot of sense to me that these bookings are up. It doesn't mean necessarily that people are going to other places, but what do you think about this trend of more Caribbean, more Mexican Riviera? What do you think that's indicative of?
Honestly, I think that you're dealing with an industry that is exploding. And when you're dealing with an industry that's exploding, the most popular portions of that industry are going to see the most benefit happen. So I think it's a little bit natural, definitely in the Caribbean side of it, but maybe on the the Mexican Riviera side of it, maybe that's a little bit different. They're all great destinations, and when you're talking about the Mexican Riviera, you're talking about California. California is the most populated state in the country, so that's you're gonna get. That's where they go. You know what I mean? So I think those stats are not necessarily trends towards the Mexican Riviera and the Caribbean. I think they're more indicative of just the industry and cruising as a whole being more of a trend to people who otherwise used to not cruise.
It's interesting. And then, the other thing as you were talking that I was thinking about is we have seen, other parts of the world kind of flare up with some turmoil. And, of course, the Caribbean's had its own over the last few months with Venezuela impacting the Caribbean. But it could be another trend to where we like our cruising, but maybe we want to stay closer to home if we're North Americans. You know what I mean? Like, true. Let's not go to some of the hot spots. The next trend I don't really have a good sense of. Greater interest in both expedition and river cruises. I don't really know what that means overall, other than the fact that we see companies like Celebrity going to launch a river cruise line. We've seen over the last few years more, expedition cruise ships to go up into Norway or go down to go to Antarctica, those kind of things. This isn't a space I really play in a whole lot, but in your travels and in your thought process, are you running into people that are saying, okay, I've done the ocean cruise. Now what's the next thing? Can I go expedition? Can I go river?
Yeah, I'm seeing more people wanting to, specifically Antarctica, for whatever reason. Everybody wants to go hit that Drake Passage. But, it's definitely not something I'm clamoring to get to. But it does seem like this, if you're going to describe this as a trend, I do think that is accurate. The river cruising thing, the problem is just, I wonder if there's ever going to be a mass marketly kind of priced version of river cruising, because I would like to try it at some point. I am definitely a little priced out of it, but I see certain groups, travel groups, and people that I know and people that I talk to, they are definitely and your younger people, 35 and below, that are definitely trying the river cruise thing and the expedition cruise thing for sure.
Yeah, what I understand about river cruises, I haven't done one yet, and to me, I've seen people do some of the river cruising in the U.S. I don't think river cruising in the U.S. is for me, but I'm definitely interested in river cruising in Europe, because what I understand is that really is the best way to see a lot of cities in Europe. So many cities are just sitting, so many like well-known cities are just sitting on rivers, where you could start in Amsterdam and go all the way, to 22 countries in 22 days, or not countries, 22 cities in 22 days. So I think there's some appeal for that, but it's drastically different. The river cruise experience, from what I understand, is drastically different than the ocean experience. So I'm wondering how well that translates. But to your point, the price point is, we're talking about people that have, a greater ability to spend than they do on, say, even with expedition, a greater ability to spend than on just mass market. It could be an exodus from the mass market too, right? Mass market is more popular than ever. We've got people that are new to cruising, and so you might be seeing some veteran cruisers saying, "Well, let me try cruising in a different way." And if you have the money for it, that's certainly a way to do it. It's crazy. Like, every conversation I've had lately is I've tried to work in the book about the sailing vessel Endurance that sailed in 1915. This guy Shackleton took 27 other men to basically trek across Antarctica. So they got in a ship called Endurance, and they were supposed to go land somewhere on Antarctica and trek across it. Well, somewhere along the way, they got stuck in the ice, and then eventually the ice crushed their ship and it sank. And these Shackleton and his 27 men, for 22 months, they lived on ice floats. Eventually, they got to the place where they could launch the boats. They had smaller boats that they kept with them, 22-foot boats. They were able to sail the Arctic Sea and get to land, but nobody was at the land they got to, and so 6 of them got into a 22-foot boat. Shackleton and 6 of his men, they left 22 behind. They got into a 22-foot boat and sailed across the Drake's Passage to South Georgia Island. Then they left a few, like 3 guys there, and then 3 of them climbed a mountain and went and got help. And after 22 months, all 27 of the men plus the captain Shackleton survived and made it back home.
That's a real story.
It's a real story. I'm listening to the audio right now. There's a great documentary on YouTube that I haven't watched yet because I want to get through the actual book encounter. This guy had, they all kept journals. I think this person was written in a time where they could interview some of the people. And dude, listening to this story and what they went through to do this, they were essentially cold and wet for 22 months. They're like,
I was going to say, that's what I'm saying. Like, what were they wearing?
Yeah, I mean they had clothes for it, and it was a full-on expedition. So they had a lot of supplies, but eventually, they're like clubbing seals, and they're they're eating sea lions, and it's insane. You listen to it, and you're going, I should never complain about anything again because these are people that really got something done. And the wild thing is, they left the coordinates of where the ship sank, and there was a photographer on board. This is 1915, and so there's wild pictures out there of them standing in front of the ship before it gets destroyed, and it's just wild. But just recently, explorers went and found the wreckage of the ship, which it's a fascinating story. But at the same time, I like to build Lego. Lego made a model of Endurance, and so I'm building the Endurance, and I'm also listening to the book. So this is the ship Endurance. I'm working.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's fascinating. So I would highly recommend it. But you talk about the Drake Pass. I'm at a section right now where they had to take a 22-foot boat, essentially, that was iced up and leaky, and they're all sleeping on rocks because they have to ballast it with like 2,000 pounds of rock, and they somehow navigate the Drake's Passage, which is one of the most treacherous waterways in the world.
Of course,
it's amazing.
yeah. Of course, the physical treachery that you would think of that they would have to endure, but more than that, the mental fatigue, the mental kind of just, I mean, people, you probably, you can't tell me all 27 of them were like gung-ho positive that they were going to make it. You had to have a couple that were like, oh, listen, we're not getting out of here. What's my next move here? Nobody went crazy either, huh?
No, it's cool that there was this one guy that would refuse to work and stuff, but the guy Shackleton, the guy that was the leader, he is often studied as this great motivational leader. He would do stuff like when they set the tents up, so they would stay on a float, like just a big block of ice, and they had tents that they could set up, but he would assign where the men would go. And so he would identify people that were troublemakers, rabble-rousers, people that would try to rile them up, and then he would put people together that would quell that. And so it's an interesting study in leadership. And then the guy, Shackleton, of course, he wants to save all of his men, but he feels like a failure because his ship sank. And but what's wild about it is it does seem like everybody volunteered to go on this mission, and these seem like real adventurous people. And then I think they all just locked into the fact that we either try to do this or we die. And, and I think, I think there were times of joy and times of despair, but they locked in. And so it's a pretty I like every time I read it, I'm pretty motivated, or I'm listening to it. Every time I'm driving in the car, or if I'm over here building the ship, I'm like, wow, this is fantastic. So I recommend it. It's great. If you like to read, it's a great book. And it's definitely a good audiobook. I'm finding audiobooks funny though. I was listening to this fantasy audiobook that put a lot of production value in it, a lot of different voices. And this Endurance is just this guy with a British voice, and it took me a while to lock into that. I was like, oh, it's pretty good. All right, one more trend, and this wasn't on Expedia's list, but this is a trend that I'm seeing more and more: greater interest in adults-only cruising. I feel like, I think this was a big deal that Carnival started doing those sea cruises, SEA cruises, where Carnival, there can be some, I've been on Carnival, I've been on Royal, I've been on Norwegian, I've been on MSC. Those are all, I definitely consider those to be family friendly, all the way up into teenage years. And sometimes you can have a moment on your cruise be a little annoying because of rambunctious kids of all ages. And some people that love kids will be like, well, drunk adults are worse than some crazy kids. I don't know. I don't think so. Crazy kids are just just looking at them like, get off my lawn, that kind of thing. So I do think there's a trend toward adults only cruising. Of course, Virgin kind of pioneered that thing, but what do you think? Is adults only interesting to you, or does it matter either way?
Definitely interesting to me. I'm all for it. Again, I am of the mindset where as much variety exists in cruising, I love it. I'm a very pro-family guy, even though I am single. I do love the fact that I get most of my friends are married with multiple kids, and I love watching them grow up. I think it's amazing. I think it's beautiful, and the family that cruises together stays together. But on the other side of it, I love that there is an option for adults only cruisers, and yeah, a lot of the things that adults are going to get into, they don't have to worry about, not necessarily being offended by the kids. They don't have to worry about the kids being offended by them, or kind of like put off by, any of the types of things that adults might want to do when there's only adults around. So all day, 100%. I'm glad that this is an experiment that seems to be working, and kudos to Carnival for leading the charge with this.
I think they've done a good job of listening to their customer, because, we've seen people clamor for that for a while. And, for a while it was, there was a hard pushback. Like, no, we're a family cruise line. No, but the beautiful thing about cruising that I really appreciate is it isn't one size fits all. This is a vacation type that has a lot of different sizes, right? If you want to liken it to a shoe store or something like that, they got the wides, they got the narrows, they got the big sizes, they got the small sizes. So all of these trends that we talk about, it's not like cruising is settling into one of these trends, but the options for cruising are, if you don't want to go to private islands, you can book an itinerary that only has traditional port stops. If you don't want a short cruise, there are many long cruises. If you don't want to go to the Caribbean or the Mexican Riviera, there's other places to go. And if you don't want to go on expedition or river, there's a lot of ocean options. So I think the thing that bodes well as a trend in 2026 for cruising is that the options continue to be many and varied, and it still becomes the onus of the cruiser and the travel professional helping the cruiser to get people to the right place. And I think both of us agree on the idea that a lot of times people that have a bad first cruise, maybe wasn't necessarily the cruise's fault, but it was just the wrong cruise for that person,
100%.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, man. I was trying to think what other trends I would like to see in cruising. I still would like to get a White Castle on a cruise ship, but again, I don't know if the plumbing can handle that. But I don't know, man. Nothing better than a good White Castle. I did see the Disney Adventure. That's Disney's newest, biggest cruise ship last week, sail away from Port Canaveral.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, I like a big ship. It was kind of cool, but then I was like, yeah, it's still Disney. So I don't know. No Disney hate out there, but I wasn't too motivated by it.
Not for me either. I'm with you on that. I'm not again, respect Disney, respect the business model. I've heard it's a very elevated product. I'm not rushing to get on the Disney cruise ship.
Yeah, me neither. Well, look, I don't have anything else. Anything else going in the world of cruising that you want to talk about?
No, we're here. We're over an hour. I think we did good. What do they say in the business, right? Always leave them wanting more.
Yeah. What do you guys want? You want more? We got more. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I forgot. There's a lot.
There will be more. There will be more.
I mean, I'm holding something back.
You got La Lita Loca all over YouTube. You got the Always Be Booked Cruise podcast as well. There's you can get sick of us real quick if you really wanted to.
That's right. We're trying our best, but no, look, I am super thankful. So if you're out there and you're listening to the show or watching the show, thanks, man, because it's hard sometimes to venture out and do something new. Fortunately for us, we're fairly committed. We're a little stubborn that way. And so it is nice to see the more viewers and the more listeners. And so, we're not going to ask for much, but if you're digging what we're putting down, tell a friend. If you've got somebody in your life that loves cruising, or just that's probably good if you like cruising. I think you'll get the most out of this show. But if you know somebody that likes cruising, if you could share this, that would be great. And certainly if you're,
I'll go and reinforce that where you it is nice to see. We do this and it's great time kind of chatting with you every week about the world of cruising, but it is also nice to scroll through those comments, and it seems like some people are fairly receptive to what we're doing, and just so you guys know that's very encouraging. We appreciate that very, very much.
Absolutely. Well, all right. Cruise Talk Weekly, episode 19 in the books. I think we've said it all. I'm Tony.
And I am Tommy.
And I guess we'll see you on the next one.
Or see you next time.
We don't see them, but yeah, you know what we mean, right? They know.
Oh, we see them. We see them.
We're in your house. I read your email. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you on the next one. Bye.
And it's to win it, never to lose. When we talk about vacation, though, it's always a cruise. It's Tony and Tommy with a TNT schmooze. Cruise Talk Weekly, and we lighten the fuse.